Now, this might surprise you, but remember this image? Yes, this cursed image right here. This image, which no doubt in my mind cursed the entirety of 2020. Well, this image was actually in 2020. I don't know about you, but for some reason in my mind, this image was last year, like December last year, maybe late November, but apparently this extremely cursed image was this year. And that throws us straight back to the famous Chris Hansen investigation of YouTube's rendition of Peter Pettigrew. I mean, Peter Pettigrew, if the Ministry of Magic was actually the FBI. But yeah, a lot of people have been wondering what's going on with this Chris Hansen investigation. There was obviously a massive hype train around 7 months ago. A lot of people were making videos on it, a lot of people were talking about it. It was quite genuinely the biggest topic on YouTube for a good week or so. And people have been wondering, where is Chris Hansen? What is he doing? Because originally everyone thought Chris Hansen would be the guy to take down Onision.
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online, and they just showed up to my house.
Okay, and they're outside now?
Yes, they're knocking on my door.
Okay. And do you know if they have any weapons?
They have a bunch of camera people, like they're YouTube stalkers.
Now, this was 6 months ago, and a lot, and I mean a lot, has happened since then. From Chris Hansen allegedly selling the Onision story to a major television network, to Chris Hansen being exposed by other YouTubers, to Chris Hansen seemingly abandoning this story for other cases, and also Chris working with a lot of shady people with their own allegations against them, and also the possibility of doxers being involved. Now, I do just want to push these things aside for a second and come out and say, despite the mess of this investigation of Onision, I do think overall this whole thing was for the good rather for the bad. Yes, a lot of shady things has happened and Chris Hansen has not handled them too well, but I do just want to say, I feel like this investigation really did publicize the whole situation with Onision. It got a lot of new people involved, investigating, taking a look at just in general this case of this crazy bloke.
Are you happy? No!
Yes.
And despite everything I'm gonna say in this video, I still think none of it excuses Onision. I think we can all come together and collectively agree that this dude is not a good dude.
You're the total meltdown!
He is one of the worst dudes on this platform, and I think this investigation over the last 7 months has, if anything, just incriminated Onision even more. And I think we do just need to clarify before we go any further that FBI investigations are separate from Chris Hansen's investigation. An FBI investigation can take years. Certain members of Hollywood have been investigated since 2005 and were only truly held accountable in 2019. These things take a lot of time. We're not going to be taking a look at the FBI investigation because, quite frankly, there is barely any information out there about it. We're just going to take a look at Chris's investigation. Now, admittedly, Chris did a lot of good when he handed some information over to the FBI in January and just in general brought more mainstream attention to this case. But I think a lot of cracks began to pop up over January, February and March, especially when it came to the people that Chris was working with.
That's going to be the statement for now, I guess. He knows we are out here. He knows we want to talk to him now and down the road, so we'll see what happens. Mike Morris is with us. Mike, anything, surprise you about all this?
This is Mike Morse, an established lawyer who worked with Chris Hansen earlier this year on the Onision case. But Mike Morse himself actually has a number of terrible allegations made against him in the last few years and has allegedly been involved in fraud schemes. And obviously a lot of people have asked the question of why Chris would work with somebody with these allegations against him on a case involving pretty similar allegations. And then we get on to Vincent Nicole Culture, and I am sorry if I mispronounced that, but Vincent is a former co-worker of Chris Hansen who has been involved in a large amount of scandals in the last 6 months alone involving Chris Hansen. And now I'm not going to do a character analysis of these two people, I don't know them, there are plenty of videos out there about them, but I'm just saying there were some cracks that begin to show with these two working on the Onision case of Chris, because why would he work with such shady people? There's clearly some bad stories out there about them, so why even risk it by working with them? Why not just work with some people who have a completely clean record? And even if these things aren't true about them, I just don't believe it's worth the risk on such an intense story. This Onision story goes back over 10 years ago, so why run the risk? And a lot of other people out there started questioning Chris Hansen's integrity, and now Chris did eventually fire Vincent, and I don't believe he has worked with Mike Morse recently, but this is when it began to become a little bit embarrassing for Chris, because not only was he dealing with this situation, but then Vincent began to hack into Chris Hansen's Facebook page and start sharing posts about ending this investigation into Onision. So yeah, it was just getting a little bit crazy here. People were just kind of being swayed away from this, seeing that Chris had worked with these people until he was eventually called out on it, and then seeing his Facebook get hacked, and it did just make this whole thing seem a little bit of a joke. People started coming out with stories involving Chris working with doxers, and yeah, I just think this is when the cracks really started to come through, but it did just continue to get worse and worse.
As you know, I've recently been reviewing the actions online and in person of my web producer, Vincent Nicotra. Things he's said and done without my permission and without my knowledge. I've come to the conclusion that I can't condone much of what he's said and done, and I can no longer work with him in any way going forward. He's not going to be involved in any further projects. I do want you to know that I will continue our very important investigation into YouTube streamer Onision and the impact of his actions on his victims. I am in constant contact with law enforcement investigators to forward this project, and I promise you that I will continue to treat the victims in these cases with the utmost respect and dignity they deserve.
Now personally, I think this was the right decision. Cutting ties with Vincent was a necessity, but you do just have to ask the question of why was Chris working with him in the first place? Why would you work with somebody who had such a shady history up until you were called out on it? And I think this comes into the question of Chris's lack of understanding of the YouTube landscape.
Why would you go where you're going? I don't know what I'm doing. You're going round in circles. Ah, shit.
I think there's a big difference between sitting down and watching an episode of Have a Seat with Chris Hansen with your friends and family and coming onto YouTube and doing this massive investigation of this one guy who has been involved in so many scandals over the last 10 years. I genuinely believe Chris didn't really have an understanding about how big this thing is, how there was a community of people literally dedicated to exposing this guy. I really don't think he understood that people in this community will call out shady tactics, call out the people you're working with, and I think that's all for the right reasons. I don't think you can investigate Onision when you're working with people who have similar allegations against their own head. Now, as much as I've said this investigation has failed, it's failing, what I mean by that is Chris Hansen hasn't exactly gotten Onision arrested yet. Onision isn't in a prison cell. I don't think there's been any actual developments in the last 6 months since this whole scandal happened. So what I'm trying to say here is yes, some good has come out of this. Onision has been exposed for basically completely mishandling his child.
We've now obtained Pierce County Sheriff's Department reports about a 911 call in September of 2019. According to the transcripts, Onision and Kai's young daughter fell from a second-story bedroom window, landing in the driveway.
And let's be real, people. Are we really surprised that this guy isn't a good parent?
Oh, well, our opinions have been invalidated so many times of him that we're gonna disable his Patreon. Wow, you would really do that. You would really do that!
Now, as much as Onision wants to convince the world that he trolled all of us and it was all a big prank and he really got us, who are you trolling here, mate? everyone still thinks that you're a complete nutjob. And part of me thinks these reactions were genuine. I don't believe an actor out there can get that level of emotion in an acting performance. I think that he was genuinely upset that his Patreon was taken down, which apparently it was also taken down again recently. But we're now getting into the territory of some of the things that truly derailed this investigation. And in my eyes, the main part about that is the mishandling of a laptop of one of Onision's alleged victims.
He lied to me. Vincent lied to me and said that he sent it to the FBI, and he did not. So I have the laptop right now. I'm not touching it. I'm not doing anything with it. I have the phone as well. And I can say with 1,000% certainty that there is child from when I was 15 sent to Kai on my phone.
Why the f didn't they do anything with this?
You would have to ask Chris and Vincent that, because I don't know.
Okay. Do you feel like he's doing his best to help you girls, or do you feel like he's just kind of running his YouTube channel?
I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't trust anybody to help us in this situation at this point. I don't trust anyone. That's specifically why I had them send me the laptop back, so I can get it to the proper people.
Yeah.
Because putting my faith in them to do it was not the correct move, obviously.
Now, to me, honestly, this is just sad. If somebody out there is going to bust somebody for the crimes that Onision has been accused of, you would automatically assume that Chris Hansen would be the guy to bust Onision for that. So it's just sad to hear that Sarah doesn't trust Chris Hansen and that he doesn't trust the people that he worked with. I really don't understand what actually happened here with the laptop. Sarah has now taken back the laptop and has said she's going to give it to people that can actually do something with it, but it is just disappointing to me, to be honest. I think this whole thing does just boil down to the people that Chris Hansen has worked with. I really do believe that it has caused a lot of damage on his integrity, especially in this investigation. I DM'd a lot of YouTubers on both sides in this situation, some who were pro Chris Hansen and some who were against Chris Hansen, and I asked them for their general thoughts on all of this. And the general consensus of it is half of the people seem to believe that Chris Hansen used this situation for attention, and the other half seem to believe, yeah, he mishandled it, but at the end of the day, he brought light to the situation, he brought attention to the situation, and he did help expose further things to show that Gregory is just not a good dude. And obviously, throwing back to the start of this video, we did get this wonderful, yet very cursed image, which I would blame the entirety of 2020 on. This image right here is the reason this year is so bad. I mean, he has turned up to a court case looking like he's gonna start for fucking LA Galaxy.
Look at the top of his head!
So yeah, in my opinion, a lot of all of the stuff exposed about Onision this year has kind of come from Repzion and Chris Hansen.
Well, today's the big court date, as you know. Onision, aka James Jackson, aka Gregory Jackson, has filed for a personal protection order against me and a YouTube streamer named Repzion.
Now, to me, I do just have to ask the question, especially after this court case, of maybe Chris Hansen underestimated this situation. Maybe he didn't realize the lengths that Onision would go to, and maybe that's why he switched to cases about Davi Vanity, another terrible person, and maybe this Davi Vanity case has consumed his time.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power!
Now, maybe Chris Hansen isn't done with this Onision investigation. Maybe the Davi Vanity thing has taken up his time, and maybe he will go back to it. And there is an article to kind of suggest that. In this article here, Chris Hansen was interviewed about his career in general, and also slightly asked about the Onision situation. It says, Hansen tells me envisioning his new development model to incubating stories on YouTube before bringing them to television. So far, so good in regard. Hansen has said he has signed a deal with Investigation Discovery to do a series about the Onision story. So yeah, apparently Chris Hansen is working with a major television network on Onision. And for me, this is the recent big cheese, the big old cheese which has gotten everyone talking, because some people have opinions that this is the worst possible thing and shows that he's a complete shill and he's just doing this for money, but some people think that this is a good thing. So let's take a look at it.
Why don't you have a seat?
Now, Chris Hansen obviously has his history of working on television, and a lot of people will argue this has got him a lot of connections to a lot of people who can help provide information. But for me personally, I don't think Chris Hansen needs to work on this with a television network. I think that he still has these connections, and I think it does just bring in the speculation about money. Maybe he wanted to profit on this more, maybe he wanted to take in more viewers on this, and just in general make this a bigger story so he can, in a way, revive his career. Now, in this article, there really isn't a mention about money. In fact, they did clarify that when a lot of people started speaking about how Chris actually sold the story, when really, there isn't too much evidence to suggest that. But in general, I think a lot of people aren't happy with this because they can just see that Chris is using this situation to his own advantage. But on the other hand, the people I've spoken to have put out the argument there that this whole TV series thing, which could possibly happen, could actually bring more people to the table, because obviously this whole Onision scandal goes back like 10 years at this point, so some people may have not seen this. Some people who knew Onision back in the day left the community, and maybe they'll see the TV show and come back in and speak about their own personal experiences and give out the information they have about the Onion. So maybe this thing could be a good thing. I think there are arguments on both sides of the spectrum here. And now the last part of this, which I'm really not going to go too much into, involves another alleged victim of Onision, Shiloh, and a lot of people have put out the argument out there that she caused damage onto this case by basically just beefing everyone in the whole community of people that are investigating this thing. Now, as crazy as it sounds, I think everyone arguing with each other in this whole community of exposing Onision has really caused more damage than good. I think, yeah, we need to call out people and bring accountability for their actions and the people Chris Hansen is working with, but at the end of the day, that's not going to cause any good for this case. And no, I'm not saying don't call out people or call out Chris Hansen, but I'm saying the facts are this has damaged Chris Hansen's investigation. The facts are all of the shady people he has worked with have damaged his investigation, and that is no one other than Chris Hansen's fault. We cannot blame the people making these videos on Chris Hansen, and we can't blame the people for arguing, because at the end of the day, it was Chris who chose to work with these people. It was Chris that chose to follow these methods, and maybe he used these methods before, but YouTube is a whole different thing to a television show. I am genuinely sad that this case isn't going anywhere at the moment, because it does just seem that this guy is getting away with his behavior.
That Onision actually took video of the child suffering in the driveway, then panned up to the window from where that child apparently fell.
What normal human being has their daughter fall out of a window, could possibly be seriously hurt, and get their phone out and saying, "Oh, come here, daughter, it's time for another YouTube video, another funny breakdown video, we're gonna prove everyone wrong, this is just gonna be another fake breakdown video." Your daughter fell out of a window, and that is your fault, and you got your phone out. I think what we need to start doing with this investigation is collectively just coming to a conclusion that yes, there have been some bad methods used here, but I think everyone just needs to start working together again on exposing this guy, because there is clearly a lot of bad things out there about him.
You're a total meltdown!
No matter what side you're on in this anti-O war, I think we can all collectively agree that that guy is nuts. But that is the ending of this video. If you want me to further investigate this case, I will do so. 30,000 likes and I will do a part 2, but please don't forget to follow my social media, subscribe right now, because I would really appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. And go follow my social medias at inabber69 on Twitter, inabber on Instagram. I am sweating so much right now. It's like 30 degrees and I'm wearing a hoodie. Yes, I don't own a t-shirt. That is the end of the video. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm sweating. See you later.